Welcome back to Emerald and Lilywhite, the official YouTube channel and podcast of Seattle Spurs. I'm your host, Max Marchand, and today I am joined by Keegan McMurray and Robbie Light. This is episode 50. Do you guys know who's number 50? Do we have any? Do we have a number 50 on the team this year?
Yeah, probably not this year, but I guess in the history of the club, Keziah Sterling.
Oh
So,
yeah, he was a youngster, I think.
yeah,
Um, Yeah, so this is episode number 50. We're at the half century mark for podcaster Emerald and Lilywhite, which is awesome. It's also happens to be the first episode without Scott on it. So Scott got 49 episodes deep and couldn't bring it home for number 50. Um so yeah, here we are. There's a lot to talk about since we last recorded. Our last recording was on the day that Kudus and Morgan Gibbs-White signed. So yeah, we can get right into it. Keegan, I'll start with you. What was your reaction to how everything went down with Morgan Gibbs-White after triggering that release clause?
Yeah, man, what a annoying mental roller coaster, emotional roller coaster that was. That first day after, I was like, it was probably like my top two Spurs days were winning the Europa League, and number two was the back-to-back. Here we goes in 24 hours, spending 120 million in 2 days. Like, I was just riding a high. Like, I didn't even feel like I went to work that day. I just coasted through life. Everything was easy, and then just woke up the next morning and was kind of like, all right, that's pretty annoying that there's some legal issues, but I have confidence we'll get it done. And then just slowly over the next 2 weeks, just slowly lost confidence, and it was obviously kind of waiting for it to come by the time that David Ornstein broke that he was going to sign a new contract, which is, I have a lot of thoughts on why he signed that contract, but it's sort of just hearsay at this point. But
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a super strange event. If you haven't been keeping up, basically we got the here we go. Their owner fucking freaked out. He just panicked. Like he said this was like a not a legal like transfer, even though we like triggered his release clause. We had the medical booked and everything. They end up stalling for 2 weeks. Tottenham don't make any signings during that period of time. And then Morgan Gibbs-White ends up extending his contract at Nottingham Forest. So Spurs are out of the signing that they dropped 60 million on. So Robbie, like, do you think they're gonna reinvest the 60 million? I mean, they've just shown us they have 60 million to spend. They kind of have to spend it, right? Or so what do you see
yeah.
happening there?
I don't know. I'm trying not to be pessimistic about it. Just knowing how long it took and what other options have since left the table. I mean, I'm starting to see names float out there, and some of them are either people I've never heard of before or are people that I'm like, I don't like. We can all address the Rodrigo rumors of like, he's already said no way, but apparently we were trying to talk to Madrid about Rodrigo. His quote was, he wants to play for a bigger club, is what I saw. So that's tough. At this point, I don't know. It's tough because I think I still fully am in the camp of Kulu's probably out till 2026. James Madison doesn't play a full season. So I don't think too many 10s is a bad thing. So like, I would love another 10. And maybe Kudus ends up playing 10. But like I said in our group chat, if he starts playing 10, then we're screwed on the wing again. Like we need another wide right winger to come in and get some minutes. So I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of names floating out there that we'll get to, but I don't know. I think we should, but will we? Unsure.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a predicament. Keegan, do you see us like primarily targeting a number 10 now? Like I think after the Gibbs-White signed, everyone was looking at like the sixth position. I know we all think fullback is a need. Because this fell through, do you predict us our next signing to be like a 10/8 to kind of fill those shoes, or do you think we sign like a left back, which is probably honestly our biggest need? or a 6 before that, and kind of maybe leave the 10 till later in the window?
Yeah, I think it's sort of interesting. I'm not sure I really have a very formulated thought about it, but what I do think is it's either one of two ways. Either Thomas Frank and Daniel Levy had identified just Morgan Gibbs-White, the player, as a market opportunity. That's all that Daniel Levy does is market opportunity. So he might have heard about this release clause, been like, that's probably under the value of what I actually value Morgan Gibbs-White as, and Thomas Frank wants Morgan Gibbs-White, and therefore we're just going to target Morgan Gibbs-White as a player regardless of his position. Or they were going into the window thinking, yeah, given Kulu's injury situation and Madison's inability to stay on the pitch all year, like we do need a 10. And out of those sort of realities, I'm not really sure which one it is, but I think it does make sense that for us to kind of target another 10. I've heard names. I've heard Harvey Elliott thrown out, not one that instills a ton of excitement within me. I've heard Leicester's Al Kanous. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
He was a 10 that I know he scored a goal against us last season that is relatively exciting. But again, like there's no 10s left on 10, like 10-8 hybrids left on the market that are of the proven quality of Morgan Gibbs-White at this point. So it's difficult.
Yeah.
I think that we'll likely target a 6 and a left back, and it's definitely seeming more. We'll get to this later, but it's seeming increasingly likely that we'll look to move on Sonny, and therefore I think we would have to target a left winger as well. But yeah, who knows?
Interesting. Yeah. So I think like on the point of like who is left out there, so it's looking like Xavi Simons is going to Chelsea. What is the story with Eze? Do you guys know? Because like I feel like he was hot. Like we were interested in him. Arsenal was interested in him. As far as I know, he's still playing for Crystal Palace. I haven't heard anything lately. Do you think that's a possibility for us to get Eze still this window, or?
We could, but it would have to be up to him. Like I was begging Morgan Gibbs-White to do. He has to come out and say, I want to play for Tottenham, because if we get in a bidding war with Arsenal, we're not winning. So I think he needs to be the one that's like, yo, I want to play for Spurs, not Arsenal. And the fact that he hasn't signed for Arsenal yet maybe means he's thinking about it, or he doesn't want to sign for Arsenal necessarily. So I don't know. The window's open, but I'm just gonna pretend it's not happening until it happens or doesn't, I guess.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised if we seriously went for Eze. It seemed like the Arsenal links had cooled down a little bit, but then I think a couple days ago, once they had been working on a center back signing, I think from Valencia, and then they were obviously linked to Rodrigo, and then cooled those rumors off a little bit. But I think that they're pretty committed to Eze after Yorkes was confirmed. So yeah, I think that if I were to predict, I think that Eze is gonna end up at Arsenal or stay at Palace, and I'd be very, very surprised if he ended up at Spurs at this point. Although he would kind of be the perfect fit, being able to fill in at 10 for Madison, and if Sonny leaves, kind of being that marquee left winger if we need that as well. And given the tactics that we've seen thus far from Thomas Frank, kind of having a inverted-esque winger and then a touchline winger on the opposite side, having like Eze as an inverted winger and then Kudus on the right as like a touchline winger would strike fear into opposing fullbacks, which is something we haven't done in years at this point. So
yeah, so it's interesting. I think like Spurs can really go like two ways in this transfer window. One of those being spend their money more evenly across multiple positions. I'd say like with like a cheaper option like El Kanous from Leicester, and maybe like get like a left winger that's around like that 20-30 million, maybe get a 6 or a left back that's around that price. They could go that way, or they could really splash and try and get a big name to sign for them. Which route do you guys prefer? Like I'm thinking like a big name. Like, would you rather have like Rafa Leao, or would you rather have Harvey Elliott and like Douglas Luiz and like a left back from like the Netherlands as like the signings, or just like Rafa Leao and like get like a $5 million left back from the Championship?
out loud as you're describing this of like, because I listened to a lot of Seattle podcasts too, and they were just talking about the Mariners at the trade deadline and like using the example of the Mariners, who are a team that builds up this big farm system. And it's like, well, at what point do you trade them and make the move? Like, at what point are we going to gather so many young players? You know, like, what are we going to do with all these young players? Or when are we going to start signing ready-made players, big players to like go up with them? So it's tough because, yeah, part of me is kind of like, well, you know, maybe we should sign some young guys for the future at this point. But it's also just like, when are we ever going to go for it? Are we just going to sign young players until we die? Or is there ever going to be a time where we kind of make a run and like supplement our young players with these ready-made players? So I don't know. I mean, I think I'm getting less and less excited every day about João Palhinha. Like, I'm just kind of like, what's the point at this point? Like, I would rather spend that 30 million elsewhere. You know, so but that's kind of going against what I just said. But like, I don't know if there's a good enough 6 that we can afford at this point. You know, Adam Morton's a dream for everybody, but I don't see that happening. So I don't know. I would love a mix of both. Like, again, I think we still should sign some young players, but yeah, like we should still, especially if Son is going to go, we should be signing a premier left winger of some sort, or another winger that's ambidextrous or whatever. But I don't know. We don't do that. So we did for 24 hours and then we didn't. So it was a dream we had for 24 hours that we were like, wow, we're actually signing multiple ready-made players. And now it's just kind of like, I don't know. I think we're at the stage of the window where I joked about this happening months ago of like, all right, who can we get on loan that's on the outs with their club? You know, that's kind of where we're heading, I think, for any of these other positions. Really need a fullback at this point. I don't know if you guys saw the video today of Jed Spence crunching Pedro Porro needlessly in a warm-up drill and just Pedro down for 35 seconds or more. So, you know, we could be down to 2 fullbacks pretty soon here. So I don't know. I just want us to do something. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And so if you had your realistic window, Keegan, I'd say like we can rule out like Adam Wharton, Rodrigo, in my opinion. I mean, maybe Adam Wharton's a little bit more likely, but if you could have like a realistic window that you would feel good about the team going into, let's say, the Super Cup, like over the course of the next 2 weeks, like if we can bring in 1 or 2 guys to strengthen the squad, like who would you be looking at? I know the links aren't too promising, but
yeah, I think for one, I think the left back position needs to be one where we target a market opportunity that's a really good price for a player that can just do a job. I definitely kind of immediately think of Dennis Sirkin from Sunderland. He would open up a space for us. In UCL because he's club trained. He'd be affordable, and he's just like a left back that's not going to do anything sexy, but he's going to like do a defensive job and not be a liability going forward. And I think at this point, like, as much as I have a ton of respect for Ben Davies, like I can't see it like Ben Davies. I think I didn't see any difference between the left back of Luton Town versus the left back of Ben Davies. In fact, I think that the Luton Town's left back played a good game compared to Ben Davies. And so I'm just like that. There can't be a situation where we rely upon him. And so I think Dennis Sirkin, for one, to fill that left back role. Kind of backpacking on your point, Robbie, with like the young players. I think at some point also you kind of have to stick with your guns and work with like a trial by fire of like you have to play your young players and rely on them. And so I think that we could potentially work to rely on Archie Gray more this year at the 6 and maybe forego a massive number 6 signing, allowing us to spend a bit more money on a hybrid versatile attacker. Of course, I would love like Rafa Leao or Rodrigo. I don't think that's obviously realistic at all. And because I just haven't seen any other links, there's no one that I'm like particularly excited about. But I do think that like if you want to compete, yeah, actually, honestly, yeah, I think I'd say that. And I have a ton of hesitations about saying that, but like I think that even when I think back to the Europa League final, and I think back to the actions of Richarlison and Brennan Johnson, our left winger and our right winger for the Europa League final, and how like frustrating and disappointing they were constantly, like just zero creative action. And then you watch Garnacho get subbed on, and within minutes create 3 chances, like and take on his man a couple of times. Like he is a player that if Thomas Frank could drill into him that like you're not going to have a massive ego and like stink up our dressing room. And like if he could, and honestly, if Cuti Romero as our captain this year, if Frank were to make him captain, could stick a boot into him in training if he starts to be an asshole, like you could get a version of Garnacho that's really dangerous and significantly better than any of our left wingers currently. Like I think that he's a better player than Tell, at least for right now. And like if you had to Tell and Garnacho on the left wing and Kudus and Odebear on the right wing and Solanke and Brennan Johnson hovering on the left bench, like I think you're in like a pretty good position in attacking wise. But I think without that, like you're relying on Matisse Tell far too much, and Brennan Johnson on to be a creative left wingers too much at this point. I have a lot of faith in Matisse Tell, and I think he's going to be a really good player for us in the future. I just can't see us relying on him for a season of 60 games with UCL football. So yeah, for me it'd be a left back, and then maybe a 6, but I think we could rely on Archie Gray, and then to be realistic, I think Garnacho or maybe another marquee left winger signing if Garnacho goes to Chelsea. I saw links for him to Chelsea today, but
yeah, I think I'm definitely excited by Garnacho. I would be pretty excited by Harvey Elliott. Like I think the problem with both of those guys is, like you said, the ego. Like they're just, I don't know, they just think they're better than they are, and I don't know if either of them like walks into Tottenham like they think they maybe should if they were to come here, and that could create a bit of a rift in the dressing room. But yeah, all this left wing talk, it kind of leads us to the elephant in the room, which is Heung-min's son, the current captain of the club, is linked with a transfer around 20 million to LAFC. There's a number of reasons for this right now, but the main reason that we haven't really seen anything too like concrete about him going is because we need to go on the preseason tour in Asia, which is where they make a lot of money because Heung-min's son is the best Asian footballer maybe of all time. So he has to stay through that. So the club makes money before he can potentially move to LAFC. But Robbie, what's your reaction to potential move to the MLS for Sonny?
Yeah, I don't know. I think from what I've heard from a few of you guys in the group chat, you're a little more understanding. I feel like I'm a little, I don't know. Like I'm a little down on the move to the MLS. Definitively say he's completely lost it. Like I think last year's son, yes, he's older, yes, he's a little slower, but he also had to play 50 something games, and then eventually got hurt and like could barely play towards the end. And you know, we said for years like, oh, put Son on Liverpool and where he's the second best forward or whatever, and he would score 25 goals again. I do think there's an opportunity for him in Europe somewhere, but to your guys' point, like maybe he said he doesn't want to play for another team in Europe, which totally up to him, totally his decision. He's earned that right. If he wants to go to the MLS, I'll still support him and still cherish him forever as a club legend, but I would be a little bummed. And also think about it financially. What the hell is LAFC going to pay Tottenham? Like 15 million, like 10 million.
Yeah. They said 20.
That would be really sad. I think if we only got 15, 20 million for him, I would say 30 or 40 is kind of where I would love to get. But again, he's 33 years old. I get it. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's totally Son saying I never want to play for another European club. Totally respect that. But I think I would love to have seen him make an effort to try to stay with a top team or even just stay at Tottenham. Again, who knows what Frank could do with him. Maybe Son is the backup striker. Maybe Son is something else like that. But just to give him one more run at Champions League football for his career to call it a day, I think would have been awesome. But again, ball's in his court. So if he's driving this, then good for him.
Yeah. I agree. I think Yeah, it's kind of up to him. Like he's a club legend. If this is where he wants to depart, then so be it. From a setup standpoint, like I think he could still be a feasible Premier League player. I'm pretty confident in that. I think off the left or as a striker, like you just mentioned, like I'd be happy to keep him around the squad and play him a fair amount. I still think he's decent. I don't think the system last year did him any favors, and I think he could be definitely a solid player for us. I think his passing is probably the best out of any winger in the squad, which is what the main thing I think he would bring. Um, but if he does want to leave, like I don't think he would go to another European side. It seems like it's MLS or Saudi, and I don't think he wants to go to Saudi Arabia. So maybe the MLS is the logical thing. You would like to get more money for him, but unfortunately the leverage we have none because he's either going on a free next year or for whatever we can get for him this year. So it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, 20 million, like you'll take it, I guess. But I think you may as well keep him unless he really wants to go personally. Um, but yeah, moving on. I mean that was pretty much the gist of the transfer market. Nothing too exciting. It looks like Mikey Moore is going to get a move to Rangers. Nothing set in stone quite yet, but that's what all the reports are saying. So, Keegan, you have any thoughts on Mikey Moore heading to Rangers for the season? Just a straight loan, thank God, because we need to hang on to him. Do you think that'll be good for him? It's been a bit of a divisive topic for people, I think. But yeah.
I do think it's a good move. I know that Rangers are currently playing in the Champions League qualifying stages. So fingers crossed they can succeed and end up playing in the Champions League. That would be awesome. I know one thing that I've been thinking about is I remember when Ahmad went on loan. Ahmad Diallo, I think played for Rangers on loan. I remember United fans being pretty frustrated by the way he was treated, and fans turned on him pretty quickly, and he just didn't, and he kind of fell out of favor and didn't have a great spell. So there's definitely hesitations just in that sense, where loan spells haven't gone to plan in the past at Rangers, but I do think there's definitely the potential for it to be a really successful loan. I think I saw that Mikey Moore is immediately the most valuable player in the Scottish Premier League, which was only like 18 million euros. But like for a 17-year-old, like that's pretty impressive. So yeah, I really, really, really hope it's successful. I sort of have a bad taste in my mouth. The only successful loan spell that I can remember in the past 3 or 4 years has been Jamie Donnelly, it feels like, and I guess Josh Keeley at Leyton Orient, where like he pretty much took League One by storm. So yeah, I have a bit of a bad taste in my mouth from loans. It feels like every time we send a guy on loan, like Will Lancashire, Dane Scarlett, or especially attacking players on loan, it seems to be they kind of fall out of favor and don't get that much playing time. And I really, really don't want that to happen to Mikey Moore. I think the only way that this loan is unsuccessful is if he doesn't play. If he plays, I think that he's on the level to be very successful in the SPL and hopefully score a couple of goals and come back a more well-rounded and experienced player next year and be able to fight for a spot on the first team. So that's definitely the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a decent loan. It's not like anything crazy. I'm definitely excited to see what he does there. I hope young player of the season, he should be bang on for that. In the Scottish Premiership and Champions League football would be great. Maybe we'll see him. I don't know if he can play against us or not, but it should be good. I mean, they also left behind Dane Scarlett and Alfie Devine off the tour to search for loans. Robbie, do you have any thoughts on these two? I mean, Alfie Devine was out in Belgium with Luka Vuskovic last year at Westerlo. I'd say it was a fairly good loan. And then Dane Scarlett, he's had a number of loans at this point. Literally none of them have worked out. I think he's been recalled in January the past 2 seasons. So where do you see him potentially fitting, and should we just cut our losses and sell him? I feel like at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and I actually saw Dane Scarlett score a goal in person, so shout out Dane Scarlett. But I don't know. He's somebody that has just been so long where it's like, is this the year? Is this the year? And I mean, I don't know enough tactically to suggest if he maybe needs to change positions, but I don't think he's big enough to be a Premier League striker. Like he's pretty short, I think. And he's just like a small guy. So like maybe it's just not the Premier League for him. Maybe it has to be, the Championship or somewhere where he would be a regular starter and scoring goals, and it's just not going to happen at Tottenham. Maybe it could. It still very well could, but he's the kind of guy that like it's just been so long. It's been 4 years of loans or whatever now it's been. Alfie Devine is someone I kind of want to see like shit or get off the pot too. Like put him in the first team or don't. Like I think he's ready for us to find out if he can do it or not. Yeah, he's had some promise, and from what I've read and heard, I've never actually gone out of my way to watch his loan matches or anything like that, but I've heard positive things about him as a midfielder and that he could be something that eventually comes along. But I don't know. I'm just kind of at the point where I feel like we hired Thomas Frank to do a job, and that job was to make more out of what we have. And you can only do that when you know what you have. So I think of the two, Alfie would be someone I would have thought maybe we should try to keep him around and give him some playing time, but it sounds like they're giving him permission for a loan. So I don't know. I don't know what that means. I guess I would hope he does something in England at this point. If he was in Belgium last year, or if he was in the Netherlands last year, should be somewhere in England, hopefully a championship team, or, when do we start getting Ryan Mason on the horn? Who can we throw his way? And who does Ryan Mason want? I guess that'll speak volumes too, is who does Ryan Mason not want? If we're not loaning people to Ryan Mason, that means he was like, nah. So, I think those are two guys we need an answer on. I think and more so Dane than Alfie, but I just kind of want to know the answer. Are they going to stay at Tottenham, or are we because just loaning them every year is getting boring, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they're both 21 at this point. Yeah, go ahead, Keagan.
No, I mean, you're going to say the same thing.
I was just you were going to say they're both 21?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both 21. Like, it's kind of now or never. Like, they're going to come back next year and be 22, and it's like you look up and like Lucas Bergvall is like 3 years younger than them, and you're like, what are you guys doing here? And I think Devine has actually been decent, dude. Like every preseason, like I think Alfie Devine has been pretty good. And this is a perfect segue. Preseason recap. We've had 3 games so far. So Keagan, like, who has stood out to you? Who has not stood out to you? Is there anyone that surprised you this preseason? What's your takeaways? We've seen 270 preseason minutes now. 180 of them were boring as fuck. So like, yeah, what's your takeaway from the preseason early on?
Yeah, I'm still trying to wake up from the games against Wickham and Luton Town. That was in Seattle, Washington. That Wickham game was at 3 a.m. and I reluctantly got up and watched it. I think I was kind of just awake anyway, but that game was more fun. It finished 2-2 and a couple of standout performers. But the Luton game, man, what a brutal game to watch.
Was probably the worst game I've ever watched, like from an entertainment standpoint. There was nothing there, like nothing to take away from that game.
I know, it was really difficult. I think if I were to take the 270 minutes as a whole and think about the players that have stood out the most, of course, it's been really awesome to watch Mo Kudus play. I mean, I think he's just exposing how lackluster our other attackers are. like you watch him and you're like, he takes on his man like 3 or 4 times a game, and you're like, what the heck? I haven't seen Brennan Johnson take on his man in 2 seasons, and he does. And Mo Kudus does this multiple times a game. Like he cuts in and fires a shot, or you're just like, what? His play exposes. Yeah, it exposes how lackluster the rest of our wing play is. And he's been just a shining light, even amongst a couple of pretty boring games. So it's been awesome to see him play. Obviously, it's been awesome to watch Luka Vuskovic play and seem to kind of settle in like a duck to water in this level of play. He's been excellent. I'm really excited to see Pape Sarr this year. Of course, he scored 2 goals against Wickham. And yeah, both of them were seemingly just kind of a classic Pape goal, just kind of pouncing, making a darting run into the box. He seems to have kind of an eye for a finish, so he's been a bit of a standout. Yeah, I was pretty impressed with Wilson Odobert in the Wickham game. He seemed to be
I thought he
crisp.
was really good that game.
Yeah, he seemed to get off a couple of good moments and creative moments. So he's a player that I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm sort of like finding it difficult to see where he gets significant playing time, but also like whenever he plays, I'm always impressed. And he's just a kind of a player I have like a little bit of a soft spot for. I just like his style, and I sort of wish he spends so much time with Matisse Tell, but Matisse Tell seems to have this like extra bit of like confidence and like I'm gonna like speak up and be a leader. And I wish kind of I wish Wilson Odobert would kind of that would kind of rub off on him a little bit. He seems to be a little bit of a shyer character. But yeah, whenever he plays, he was good against Wickham. So yeah, I mean, a couple of names there that have been impressive standouts. But to be honest, it's been sort of like a boring preseason thus far. I normally really enjoy preseason, but especially those last two games are just kind of miserable. I'm excited for Arsenal on Thursday morning. That should be enjoyable. I think it'll be interesting to see who Thomas Frank puts out there and kind of his strategy on starting to put together a first 11 in preparations for PSG. So,
yeah, Robbie, any names that impressed you or did not impress you so far?
Yeah, I didn't watch a ton of it, but the perception online, I think Son is a name that was called out as not impressing. And again, maybe just all of this transfer talk, he's just kind of going through the motions. Totally fair. I think another tactical point that was called out was just like the six in general were really struggling, whoever's playing at six. And again, it's because it's either like Bergvall or Gray or, people that are just kind of finding their feet. So that does make you wonder or worry about signing a six in some way. But also too, like just thinking about, you just mentioned the Super Cup. Like, I think we all knew this when Tottenham decided to fire Ange Postecoglou. Just the idea of like Thomas Frank is using this entire preseason to just tinker. And so there's probably never going to be rhythm. There's probably never going to be attractive football in any of our preseason games because Thomas Frank is just trying to figure out what the hell he has. And that's what happens when you bring in a new manager. And even if PSG was a mortal team, we would be worried going into that game. But at this point, I'm just like, he's just putting players wherever he feels like it and just seeing who he's got, what he has. And they will ramp up eventually. The final few games, I'm sure there'll be a more static starting 11. There will be more positions like that. But yeah, I was really hyped about the Super Cup for about 4 weeks, and then now I'm just like, damn, it's gonna be rough. And I think it's by design. Like again, I think Thomas Frank is just really trying to figure out who on the squad deserves to be here and deserves to play, and that's fair. But it's sad that I have going into the Super Cup. We killed that dream when we let go of Ange Postecoglou. And not that he was the right choice to continue on as manager, but at least we would have had continuity in system, in, momentum, etc. So, yeah, I think I'm already writing off the Super Cup, but boy, will I be glad to be wrong. So, we'll see, but I'm not putting any stock in it.
Yeah. Yeah. To echo a bit of what Keagan said, Vuskovic, just incredible this preseason. Without a doubt should be on the first team. I think he's like beyond ready. Christian Romero, like the buildup is so like obviously better when he is playing. It's just not even like in the Luton game we just couldn't do anything. And I think that really highlights the point where there was no creativity in the midfield. I mean, we had Mikey Moore at the 10 like during that game, and it wasn't working, and nothing was happening in the midfield at all. I think they found a lot of success against Wickham with Odobert playing like a lot more inverted. That's where a lot of the chances were coming from, him drifting more inside against Wickham, created one of the goals that Sarr scored. I think Pedro Porro, his passing has been phenomenal. Another player essential to the buildup. Like without Porro and Romero, we could not get the ball up at all. We couldn't even like make a pass Great cameo from Tynan Thompson. He was probably the third best player on the U18s last year, I'd say, behind Janai Byfield and Luca Williams-Barnett, who both featured in the 2 games last Saturday. So shout out to those 3, especially Tynan, who got an assist and looked really lively off the left wing.
And shout out Byfield for making the tour also. I mean, what an
Byfield made the tour. Yes, he made the tour.
That is really, really a massive accomplishment. So I'm
16,
I'm
another center back as well. So I'm excited to see him play. And then Kinski, I think Kinski is going to be a bit of a revelation in this like back 3 that we play when we're in possession under Thomas Frank. And I think he's going to help a lot with his feet. And I wouldn't nail down Vicario as the starting goalkeeper consistently for this team just yet. I know I've personally been a huge Kinski fan since the moment he's joined and one of Vicario's harsher critics. So I think Kinski's been fantastic. And I don't think Vicario has been very good, especially with his feet this preseason. So it'll be interesting to see how that materializes. And yeah, Byfield made the tour. I think that's notable. I think George Abbott making the tour is also notable. Jamie Donnelly, Lancashire, those are Yang. Those are some guys that were maybe on the fence that Frank wants a bit more of a look at on the tour. But before we get to that, we had players that stayed behind because they were injured, and that includes Destiny Udogie, Kota Takai, and Manners Solomon. Do you guys have any thoughts on the injuries? Like Udogie is definitely one that's a little bit concerning. Takai apparently has like plantar fasciitis. That's like a serious injury. Like, I don't know how he's already picked that up here. And then Manor Solomon, like, we're trying to sell the guy. He's hurt. Like it's not going well for Sanem. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say, and I only saw one person on Twitter say this, so probably not accurate, but I saw the term torn meniscus with Udogie on Twitter. Oh. I don't know. Again, I saw one person say it. I have not seen any other big in the nose say it. So the statement was very vague when they announced it too. So it was like they obviously still don't really know what the injury is, but somebody said meniscus. We'll see. And then the narrative has started on Twitter. I've seen people suggesting, well, Udogie is injury prone because he's been hurt every year since he's been here with a pretty significant injury. Goes back to the discussion of fullback and why we need to sign another fullback. Solanke, unfortunately, is becoming perhaps knock prone as well. Someone who I don't think missed ever a game or something at Bournemouth and then came to Tottenham and got hurt. And, another story that we see all the time. And then, Takai, sounds like that's a pretty serious injury. Solomon, I guess I just haven't been keeping tabs on, but I did see that he's injured, and I know that's a big reason why we haven't been able to move him, because it sounds like we want to sell him or loan him at least. And again, Leeds being the early candidate there. But yeah, I don't know what is going on. Everyone was blaming Ange. Now it's still happening with these random injuries. It's the training style of Ange. We fired the medical team twice in the last 3 years. I just don't know what to make of it and what's going on. These world-class facilities that we have. So I don't know if it's just Tottenham luck or what's going on. But we need to sign more people, or at least, we need to have players that we can trust to play, because we're just going to keep getting injured, it seems like.
Yeah, I think that Udogie dialogue is one that's really interesting, because at this point, like, we can call him injury prone. Do you have any thoughts on this? Like, is this just what his career is going to be, Keegan, or do you see him like this is just like another blip? But it's been, like Robbie said, it's been 3 years of just injuries every couple of months for Destiny Udogie.
Yeah, it's difficult and it's frustrating for sure. I think he's such an important profile for us, especially in like tactically and what it seems what Frank is looking to do with our fullbacks and our center backs. Where if we're assuming that Porro and Udogie are our two starting fullbacks, having Porro kind of swing in and play like a right center back, and then like be really pivotal to our buildup and kind of pinging long balls and breaking lines, and then having Udogie create a ton of space by bombing up the left flank for our inverted left winger, like Matisse Tell was playing. It seemed to be like a really effective kind of tactic. And Udogie just looked so dangerous, especially in that Reading game. Like I thought he was definitely one of our standout players that game. So yeah, I mean, and Udogie had a really strong end of the season. I know he had a couple of months between where he maybe looked like he wasn't back to his best after an injury that I believe was in like kind of around Christmas time last year. And then he kind of had a couple of rougher weeks, but then he really showed up and showed why he's such an important player, and he's such a physical presence on the left side. He's a really solid defender, I've always felt like, but he also is just, if he gets ahead of steam, like it's really almost impossible to keep up with him and keep him in front of you. He's so dangerous kind of going forward and just committing players and creating space. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely so difficult because I love him so much as a player, and I think he's such a valuable profile for us. But yeah, I mean, it just seems like he's injury prone, which like I guess maybe goes back to my point about like looking at potentially Dennis Sirkin. But like if you think that he's really that injury prone, then shouldn't you sign somebody that's going to be like a starting level left back? So maybe that goes against my point of looking at Dennis Sirkin. But yeah, I really hope this is just kind of a knock or a niggle, and he'll be back and looking ready for hopefully PSG or Newcastle, or I guess he's not on the tour at all, so he'll just get to heal. But so hopefully he'll be back for PSG. I don't know if Bayern Munich is still, that game's still considered to be on our tour, but
it is not in Asia, but it's in Germany.
Okay. And I don't know, maybe we'll never know the real answer, but maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that Udogie is injury prone because we've never had an alternative and he always has to play. And we'll just like never know. Like, especially his first year, and where he ended up getting hurt at the end of it, he played every single match that year because we didn't like Andrew's first year, we did not have any other left backs except for Ben Davis, right? In the one game we played Mickey Van de Ven there, and he got hurt, or was that last year? I don't even remember. They're blending together at this point. But yeah, it's unfortunately destiny. We may not know the real truth of maybe we just ran him into the ground and that's why he's getting hurt. But that's unfortunate.
Yeah. I don't think Van de Ven at left back is a crazy shout for us this season. Like, I think that genuinely could be a formidable option. I also think Jed Spence obviously can play left back, but we need one of the sides to be covered with a new signing. So yeah, let's talk about the tour. We're going to Asia to play Arsenal and Newcastle, which I think is fucking stupid. I'm just gonna say it right now. Why are we playing teams in the Premier League like in Asia? This does not make any sense to me. Like, I'm sorry. I think that's stupid. I think that's woke. I don't care like how much money we're getting from this tour, but like the fact that we're playing Arsenal on August 1st or something, it's like, why are like, what is the point anymore? Like, I don't know if you guys have any strong thoughts, but yeah, what are your guys' expectations for the tour? I just want to preface that with I'm against the tour. I'd rather play teams from other countries that we don't play 2 times a year, every year, on our tour. So thoughts? Any thoughts?
Well, I think I'll just say quickly that like that's what all the other Premier Leagues team do in America. Like they just come to America and play each other.
So dumb.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, especially honestly, I'm not against Premier League teams, but I'm absolutely against Arsenal. Like that's a dumb friendly to do. Newcastle, I guess, fine, whatever. They're not somebody that I think twice about ever. You know, even if they are better than us some years, I don't even just think about Newcastle. But yeah, Arsenal, definitely a dumb decision. You know, it should have been someone like a Bournemouth or a West Ham or a, you know, and some people say West Ham is a rival. I don't ever think of them.
I'm sure that would go over.
Yeah. But yeah, Arsenal's a dumb one for sure. And I think without Googling, I think they're in Hong Kong. That's where the Arsenal match is, at least.
Yeah.
Arsenal's
Yeah.
in Hong Kong, and then Newcastle's in Seoul, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I knew one of them was in Hong Kong. Yeah. So you guys have, let's talk football for a second. Keegan, do you have anyone you're looking at in particular that you want to see match up against these teams? Anything from Thomas Frank that you're looking forward to seeing?
Yeah. I mean, I think going back to your first point, like I also am sort of like in a emotional purgatory of like I'll be like, oh my gosh, we're playing Arsenal on Thursday, and then get kind of like anxious or nervous or riled up for the game, and then be like, wait, it's just preseason, like. But it's just kind of it's super dumb. I don't understand why you would kind of like force a rivalry game when like those games should be put on a pedestal, meaning they should only be played when they're like in the Premier League or in a cup game or even in like Europe. So yeah, I think it's stupid definitely to play Arsenal. I'm not like super looking forward to that game because of that. Because I know I always get angry when we play Arsenal. But it's just preseason. But yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of see. I hope that we kind of like figure out how to balance. Like I know that Thomas Frank, his favorite saying, he said it like 5 times in interviews in the past like 2 months, is like, not taking risks is also taking a risk. And like either you're lying or like that did not come to fruition and against Luton Town, because we took 0 risk against Luton or Wickham. Like it was so fucking boring. And so I hope that comes to play. Is like I understand like we need to be defensively solid, and I think that we will be that just by product of the way that Thomas Frank is having us press differently. But like I want to see us like try and be like very creative and like very attacking as well against Arsenal. So yeah, I hope to see kind of more of a first 11 maybe get formed a little bit, at least for the first 45 to 70 minutes, and then see a ton of other bodies come in and play. But I think that like at some point you have to start like formulating some chemistry and some like dynamics between a midfield and a defense and an attack that might actually be starting together come PSG and come Burnley. So I hope that kind of starts to come to fruition. I also know that we just like we don't do any transfer business on tour, and I think that's so stupid. That's such a Daniel Levy thing. Like he goes on vacation when we're on tour. Like I want to wake up tomorrow morning and see some reliable links, and I want that to happen in the next 5 days, because it really feels like if we are realistically going to make the signings that we need to do and get rid of the players that we need to get rid of, like things have to start moving like pretty quickly at this point. Especially if you want to get those signings done before PSG and before Burnley. So yeah, that's kind of what I want to see coming in the next couple of weeks with tour.
Yeah. Just before we wrap up, I'll ask you guys both. I'll start with Robbie. It's August 13th, and we're playing PSG. What's your starting 11?
Well, I guess we don't know left back right off the top of my head. We may not know. I think we'll probably do a back 5 against PSG if I'm being honest. Like I think that's something Frank would do, just to be like, yo, we're gonna get train wrecked. So I don't know who would be at left back. I guess it has to be Spence. And then a back 3 of Danzo, Van de Ven, and Romero, and then Porro at right back. Assuming we're doing, like a holding midfield pivot, I guess, too, like a 3, or I don't even know what that lineup would look like a back 5, but it would still kind of be like a 3-5-2. Probably Bentancur and either Bergvall or Gray. I'm going to lean Gray because I think Bergvall's still not like 100%, I think. But I haven't seen a lot of Gray in preseason, so I don't know. I think it has to be Tell on the left, Kudus on the right. And then at 10, I guess that's probably the biggest question outside of left back is like who's playing 10. Pape Sarr, I guess, is the only option right now.
At that point, we'd have 12 players. So I think it's just a two midfield and then a striker if we're playing 5 at the back.
Yeah, or I guess I was saying more of like it's technically a back 5, but it's like a 3-5-2 kind of look. But then Solanke at top, obviously, and then I think at this point, that would kind of be it. I don't really know what. Again, we're just waiting on other signings, and basing it on the fact that we have it's all got to be players that have been with the team for a while. I would imagine, other than Kudus. Because we just don't have any other incoming signings. So I don't know. It's probably going to be messy is my answer.
Yeah. Keegan?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't played a 5 at the back thus far, but I also agree with Robbie. Like that seems like it would be a tactically kind of like sound idea, especially against a PSG team that's so dynamic going forward. But I guess if I were to do something different and just stick with our back 4, do like a 4-2-3-1. I want to go Kinski because I'm kind of a big Vicario hater. I just think he's sort of irritating. and doesn't play well with his feet. So give me Kinski, Poro, Romero, Van de Ven, and then whoever's fit at left back. Hopefully that's Udogie, but if not, Spence. And then I would say Bentancur, Bergvall, Madison, and then a front three of Kudus, Solanke, and Matisse Tell on the left.
Yep, that's exactly what I would go with.
I think that at that point, Sonny's probably going to be sort of getting phased out and trying to finalize his move. So you have to assume that that'll be Matisse at that point, because I don't think that we'll have signed a replacement.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's worth noting, I was going to mention this earlier, I don't know if you guys have seen it. I've seen multiple sources discussing a Kinski loan.
Which is
seems like the dumbest thing ever. Like, what is the point of that?
Yeah.
Especially after what Brandon Austin was cooking against Wickham. Like, he looked fucking atrocious out there.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, I think
but
I love Kinski. Yeah, I'd go with exactly what Keagan said. So yeah, that'll be it for the episode. I mean, we were hoping after some preseason, maybe he get Morgan Gibbs-White through the door. Like, this would have been a better episode, vibes wise. But no, we're going to Hong Kong. We're going to Korea. We'll see what happens there. Just playing Premier League teams again. We'll probably see them both in a month's time. So, like, I guess that's cool. I'd say watch out. Shout out to Janai Byfield making the tour, like Keagan said earlier. I'd say my player to watch, James Madison. Is he going to be back healthy, like playing against these teams? He is, for me, outside of Christian Romero, our most important player heading into this season, just because of the nature of Kulusevski's injury and the lack of signings that we have so far. So that'll do it for us. Follow Seattle Spurs on all social media platforms, Emerald and Lilywhite on all social media platforms. Like, subscribe, follow me at Going Limbs on Twitter, Keagan at Keagan McMurray on Twitter, Robbie at Robbie Light on Twitter. Scott, not here for episode number 50, but Scott G. Bird on Twitter. Head on down to the Wits, Cascades, Rainier Growlers when the season starts, like for the Super Cup, because the matches will be playing there. All the preseason tour matches are going to be at 4:30 a.m. At least when we're in Asia. So for Newcastle and Arsenal. So keep an eye out for those. And yeah, that'll do it for us. Come on, you Spurs.
On you Spurs.